Goodnight, Aiko. Who is Aiko Tanaka, and why is she so often misinterpreted from the hit series Goodnight, Punpun? If you haven't read the manga, I would highly recommend you to do so before continuing with this video, because there's going to be some spoilers ahead. Just a heads up. Let's get started. Goodnight, Punpun is a coming-of-age story written by Inio Asano that essentially shares the life of a boy, Punpun, dealing with his dysfunctional family, first love, and the struggles of growing up in a world where the only support is yourself. The story is depicted through the eyes of a bird-like character who represents Punpun's inner thoughts and emotions, creating a fascinating development. Aiko, a girl who Punpun meets in his early years of school. Aiko is often portrayed as a manipulative and selfish character, though it's felt she's often the most misunderstood character in the series, more than just a side character. Aiko's past is revealed to be an extremely traumatic one. As a little girl, she was sexually abused by her stepfather, creating a disoriented view of love and relationships for Aiko. It becomes further obvious of this mentality when it's discovered Aiko's mother is neglectful as well. Her father would then become absent. Aiko's actions can be seen as a coping mechanism as she tries to gain control and power in her relationships to avoid being hurt again. Aiko's past trauma also affects her relationship with Punpun. She's attracted to him because he's different from the other boys in her life. He's kind, caring, and starting at a young age. Aiko sees him as someone who can protect her from the vast world. The trauma she's experienced and been suppressing for so long will soon arise, leading her to push Punpun away when he becomes too close, as she fears being hurt once again. Just a side note, I'm not trying to say trauma can be used as an excuse for messing with others, alright? But I'm just trying to say this is just a very important part of Aiko's character. Aiko's behavior can then be understood as a response to the depiction of a toxic upbringing in the young boys present in the series. Young men who believe they need to be seemingly one man for many women. Punpun and his male friends often engage in sexist and even objectifying behavior towards women, and Aiko's actions can be seen as a way to challenge this behavior, to assert her own agency. A depiction of this could be Aiko's sexual relationship a bit in the future with Punpun, interpreted as a way to take control of her sexuality, giving her a sense of authority. She sees relationships as a power imbalance where one person must dominate the other to avoid being hurt, which is often why she tries to take control and create leadership of herself around others, including around Punpun. Aiko's character arc is one of the most tragic in the series. Despite her efforts to gain control and power, her relationship with Punpun and her friends ultimately end in heartbreak and betrayal. Aiko's final moments are particularly poignant as she realizes the futility of her actions and the depth of her loneliness. With a lack of warmth, left in isolation, Aiko's character can be seen as a warning about the dangers of using power and control in a way to cope with leftover trauma. After a mournful falling of events, Aiko's character can also be seen as a commentary as the nature of love. Aiko's distorted view of love and relationships is a direct result of her past trauma, but it also challenges traditional notions of love and romance. Her relationship with Punpun is complicated and messy, but it also deeply human and real, unfiltered, and raw. Aiko was often a tool used to gain a deeper appreciation for the themes and messages present in Goodnight, Punpun. Aiko's need for control and power was her way of protecting herself from the seemingly cruel nature of the men around her. That if she was the dominant one instead, she'd be able to avoid being vulnerable and exposed. Also being guarded and closed off from Punpun despite her underlying feelings for him. Aiko is often overlooked as a mindless love interest, only existing to give Punpun character development, but she's actually an extremely sharp and perceptive character who is not afraid to speak her mind. She was able to hold conversations with Punpun that were often filled with insightful observations and witty banter, making her a really compelling character to analyze and observe. Aiko is a complex and multifaceted character who adds depth and nuance to Goodnight, Punpun. Holding past trauma and a need for control and power makes her compelling and deeply complicated and an integral character. She depicts the tragic outcome of those who make attempts to gain power and out of self-pity, creating a notice of importance in finding healthy and genuine connections with others. It's often that people don't understand who Aiko really is, what she truly brings to the table. Carrying the weight of first love is not a simple other in Goodnight Punpun.